Good morning. This is Bob Starling, and welcome to the September National AEE webinar. We appreciate you making time to join us this morning, and we've got a very interesting presentation today by David DePriest and Robert Arrow. David is the Regional Vice President for Region 2, and Robert is the Regional Vice President for Region 4. I'm going to have a few announcements at the end about a few changes that we're having on the dates to our webinar, and want to also make sure everybody's got WEC down on your calendar and got your hotel rooms reserved, and that you're good and ready to go. So right now I'm seeing that we've got 14 attendees. And rather than take up time from both of our presenters, I am going to shift our presentation over to David DePriest, and I'm going to ask David to go ahead and start his presentation at this time.
Let me know when you see the first slide up there, Bobby.
Okay, I must have hit the wrong button, Sharon. I thought I had it done. Sharon, are you with me?
I am with you. I think David is the presenter because he's not in the presenter list now, which means he must currently be presenting. It says now viewing David DePriest screen.
Okay. The only problem is I don't see it.
I see.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
All right.
Whoops.
So now let me get back over to presentation mode here. Let me know when you can see that.
I can see it, David.
Very good. So Region 2, of course, there are multiple ways of fundraising for your individual chapters, and whether you do that as a single chapter or you combine with other local chapters that may be close by. One of the ways that the Middle Tennessee chapter, which I was involved with, has had success in the past to fundraise for primarily scholarships and donations is to have an annual golf scramble. And we hold what is the Middle Tennessee's Gary Moody Memorial Golf Scramble. Gary Moody was very instrumental in the formation of the Middle Tennessee chapter of AEE and passed away several years ago. But as a memorial, we do hold this golf tournament locally for his sake. Our first year, we raised about $2,500, gave that to the Boy Scouts of America, local chapter that Gary was involved with. And then since then, we've utilized the funds as scholarship feedstock for engineering scholarships at local colleges. So it's been very successful for us. Get about $2,500 to $3,500, so a net about $3,000 every year when we do this. The keys for one of these events is it does take a lot of planning. So my suggestion is start early. So our target for this event is usually May. And we typically start planning with a subcommittee in January. And that subcommittee is going to have about 7 or 8 people on it because there's so many things that need follow-up. We begin by meeting bi-weekly. We'll have a lunch meeting typically the first time and then follow up with conference calls thereafter, or if we need to meet face-to-face again, we'll meet somewhere locally. We'll make sure that we're inviting our golfers by sending personal emails out. So we do a web or an email blast, but we also find out that we get better responses by either me or the person who knows the contractor or the individual or the company, sending it out a personal email to invite them to attend the event, and sometime by the end of March, because a lot of people tend to go to these charity events, but their calendars get full pretty quickly in that April and May time zone. So for the golf scramble, we develop a to-do list. There's simple follow-up items that we keep. Either myself or our chapter secretary will keep notes on. simply pick a course and discuss potential dates, but see what kind of open dates the local course has with the Club Pro or their event rep. One of the things that we found out through doing this the last 3 years was we actually had one event that was conflicting with an ASME event, so our attendance was down quite a few teams that year. So you want to sort of put out feelers, and if you have friends or members that are also involved with other associations, then they can give you some feedback on what events might be coming up, and try not to book over the top of those. Of course, you're going to negotiate your cost per person, cost per team with the Club Pro. And the biggest thing for these tournaments, of course, is since people are taking a day out of their work day typically, or their work week typically, is make sure you have a lot of fun things to do out there. Mulligans, red tees, give the companies the opportunity to have host scholarships or sponsorships. They have to pitch in a little bit more money to have a sign out there on the tee box. Add in a long drive, add in a straightest drive, add in, whatever you can do to make it fun. You're going to have to most likely negotiate with the club, or if the club doesn't have services there, an outside vendor to provide food options. We develop an event flyer. We make sure that flyer is available, goes out with our emails. We put it on our web page as a hot link. You can jump to it there. We also try to make it easy to register online and to also pay online through PayPal or some other financial payment system. And finally, you want to have plenty of door prizes. So we have been lucky enough to have sponsors that have provided a multitude of door prizes, and not just the golf bag or the driver or putter. And those are great, and that keeps everybody there for the first 5 minutes when you're drawing those out, or at the end if you hold them to the end. But we have been lucky enough to have door prizes for almost everyone that attends. So either a $25 gift card, or hats or golf balls or whatever. So that really keeps the people excited and keeps them there throughout the whole event. And then another idea that's come through for our Huntsville chapter, Skip Smith sent this over, is they're having a Boston butt sale. And this is sort of a mock-up of the flyer that they're getting ready to send out. So they've got a specific order date that you need to meet, and a link there that you can go to place your order. You can pay by check or online, which makes it easy for the people who want to be involved in this. Contact information, and then 2 pickup locations or 3 pickup locations in the local area. And Skip said the best thing about this, and the proceeds will, of course, be going to the local schools, scholarships, et cetera, but they end up netting about $5,000 to $6,000, which is a very good fundraiser. It's hard to get that much out of a fundraiser. Charge $35 each, and I think they cook them all there and have them ready. And Bob, I think you had some additional comments about this event, right?
Thank you, David. I do. That's the chapter that I'm a member of, and our local high school did this a couple of years ago. The kids come around selling stuff. There must be a mark on our door. These guys will buy anything. And they stopped by selling the Boston butts, and I bought one. And they came back again this year saying, the kid started, he was on the football team or something, and he says, we're going to be selling Boston. I said, I'll take it. These are delicious. That was the easiest sale that kid ever had in his life. They are really good. Our Skip Smith is our president, and our previous president will work with him, and they'll cook these. And let me tell you something. Once the word gets out, you kind of have to do this once, and then then the word gets out, and you don't have any trouble at all selling these if people know what they are. They are delicious, they're smoked, and they're great. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight that a little bit.
Certainly. One question, a little detail, Bob, is where do you source your meat from? Is it a local store? Is it big box? Or where do you source your Boston butts from?
They work it, I believe, from a big box location. They get a little bit better front end cost on it, and that increases profit margin a little bit. All of the labor is free the way that we do it, so only cost they have is the material itself, the meat itself.
And one quick question also: how many did you sell last year total?
Oh, this is our, I'm sorry, Skip, I didn't mean to, David, I didn't mean to mislead you. This is the first year that our AEE chapter's done it. The high school has done it, and they sold several hundred of them. I can't tell you how many.
Okay, great.
$5,000 to $6,000 is not bad.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, that's all I had. Of course, there's other ways of earning fundraising, including hosting AEE trainings, which we did not have time to speak about today, but I'll leave that up to maybe Robert has something on that. So that's all I had, Bob.
Okay, David, I really appreciate that. And what I'm going to do now is ask Sharon to shift over to Robert for us and change our presenter.
Okay, should be going over to Robert now.
Okay, thank you. I see, there you go, Robert. I see your presentation on the screen at this point in time. Thank you, Sharon.
Let me see if I can get this.
Do slideshow, top, right here.
Right here?
Across the top up here where it says slideshow. To right there. And though from the beginning on the left, right there. Almost at it. Click right there.
It's not cooperating.
All right, go with what you got.
How about this one?
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Arrow. I'm with the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, one of the past presidents of the Arkansas chapter of AEE. And my presentation is going to be on conferences and trade shows, which, as far as this presentation, pretty much one and the same. Conferences can be a great fundraising event. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is keep your focus on education. If you focus on education, the rest will fall into place. And also a great opportunity for CEUs for the attendees. But I'm not going to lie to you. These events are a lot of work, very time consuming, and takes a lot of commitment. Probably want to start at least 1 year in advance. One of the best things that we learned is work as a committee, get a group of people, and utilize people's strengths. You might have somebody who is great to get conference speakers and other people great to get sponsorships and vendors, but work to everybody's strengths. Conference example I'm going to give you, it's based on one that I was a conference chair on. A 2-day event, continuing education, multiple tracks. That's something I would really like to stress on anybody considering a conference. Energy is diverse. Provide diversity. Look at all aspects of energy, from energy management, commissioning, retro commissioning, power plants, including boilers, chillers, HVAC, electrical, controls, and even a finance overview. How does an energy guy talk the language of a chief financial officer? And maybe even include some residential. Keep the tracks kind of broad. You'll get more attendees. Get some of the wrench turners, and you would get more repeat attendees for conferences and a good possibility of new members for the chapter. When you look at for vendors and the trade show, good benefit for the vendors. gives them an opportunity to meet 200 potential customers if you have 200 attendees, and also gives attendees a chance to see the newest technology out there. In sponsorships, look to your local utilities, energy service companies, HVAC companies. These are the people who will like to get their name out there, and they're also a good source for presenters. And look at the benefits to them. Maybe offer the high dollar presenters, or excuse me, sponsors, vendor booth space, complimentary registrations, name and logo on all conference materials. And obviously the higher dollar sponsors would get a little more than the lower dollar. Conference we put on, we had 4 levels: platinum at $5,000 per sponsor, gold at $2,500, silver at $15,000, and bronze at $750. So as we look through the potential expenses and revenue, every conference would change by your location. You might be only do a 1 day, and you may not have 200 people. You may have 100. But next, as we go through the next slide, keep that in mind. Potential conference financials. Expenses, you could get a facility for around $10,000. If you only do a 1 day conference, that expense could be cut in half. Food service, $20,000. And depending on how many people, this is based on about 200 people. So if you have 100, you can cut this expense in half. One good recommendation is to always have great food. That would go a long way for a conference. Trade show setup and AV equipment and so on, ballpark of $5,000. Some of that could be included in the facility cost, depending on the facility, and a miscellaneous estimate of $5,000, which could include printing of materials, printing of posters, printing of conference programs, and anything else that may come up. So estimated expenses could be looking at $40,000. That sounds like a lot of money up front, but when you look at the revenues, sponsors, you could get an easy $40,000, which would cover your expenses. Vendor registration, $10,000, kind of based at 20 vendors at $500 for a vendor booth, and registrations at $20,000, 200 people at $100 per registration. Potential revenue of $70,000. So the net result, you could have a net chapter value of $30,000 by holding say a 2 day conference. It could be less for a 1 day, or it could be the same or even more, depending on your expenses and number of attendees. And then you could come out to be the hero of your chapter, especially if it's the first conference you put on. Here's my contact information. If any, I did not go into as many specifics as David did, but I would be glad to talk to anybody with more details, get more into the weeds, talk about some of the, how we set up, or at least how I set up, some of the things that need to get done. And I actually had a spreadsheet similar to what David showed you, but with almost everything, who was responsible, due dates, and the progress. But I would be glad to share any information or talk with any of you regarding hosting a statewide conference or regional conference in your state. And if anybody has any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Robert, Bob here. And I may have missed that, did the sponsors have booths, any booths set up there at the conference, or was that not something that was done?
Kind of how we addressed it, we did have a trade show. The trade show was attached, and on our sponsorship levels, the platinum and gold sponsors, they received a complimentary booth, where the silver and bronze did not. If they wanted a booth, they paid the extra $500.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you very much. If any of you have questions, just fire them in. We're looking to see those, and address any questions that we might have. At this point in time, I don't see any. Wanted to continue on with our program today. We've gotten some really good information here from both David and from Robert about some pretty significant fundraising activities. That's both of them talked about the level of planning that's involved and the level of effort that's involved, but they also talked about the level of funds received, and that's pretty interesting. Some other activities that I know the Huntsville chapter and many other chapters have done is AEE certification classes, such as CEM training. That is something that I know several of the chapters have done, and that's worked out quite well. The Huntsville chapter has done that, and they have sponsors to furnish breakfast and hot breakfast and hot lunches so that the students stay at the training site during the whole day. They also, for the training classes, they have workshops afterwards filled with people who have recently passed that particular type of training. In this case, we'll say CEM training. And they work with those that are interested in going through the day's lesson and going over it. And that seems to help the pass-fail ratio considerably. And that is another way that we can work with AEE to raise money and have funds available to us. So wanted to share that with you. Wanted to also thank both David and Robert for their great presentations this morning. We really appreciate it. The couple of announcements that I alluded to earlier. Normally our webinars are held on the fourth Thursday of the month. For the months of November and December, those dates conflict with Thanksgiving and pretty close to Christmas. So we're going to move those dates up to the third Thursday of the month. So in November, our national webinar, AEE webinar, will be held on the 15th of November. The invitation that you get will cover that and will make that clear. And in December, the national webinar will be held on the 20th of December. So that's just a little bit earlier and able to not have any potential conflicts with any of the holidays that are going on during that time. Looking here, we've got a few comments. Some people had a little difficulty logging in. It says for that person, I believe that's Kevin, we will be sending out a recording and to everyone of this webinar. We always do that. We apologize for those that had difficulty logging in. So thanks for your questions. Cecil Jones indicates that he didn't have questions. He thought that all of the information was good that we've received. I've got, we wanted to highlight WEC, of course, coming up the 17th and the 18th of October. Since there are many of you here who are chapter officers, that's mainly the focus of our webinar. Would like to highly encourage you to attend on the 16th, which is Tuesday, October the 16th. And that's what I call the executive session. I know AEE has a different name for it, but I call it the executive session. And that's where you will hear from each of the regional vice presidents about neat things that are going on within chapter within their territory, within their region. I attended that session as a brand new vice president many years ago, and I learned a tremendous amount from attending that. So I highly encourage you, if it's any way possible, to go ahead and make plans to attend on the 16th, the day before the actual WEC begins. Also, one encouragement is if you have not yet made your hotel reservations, you better get it done, because the rooms are booking up really fast. And also, we were mentioned the last month on the AWE webinar, Ruth Whitlock mentioned, make sure you make those reservations through the website. There are a lot of rip-off artists out there, and they'd love to have your money. And if they get it, when you show up, your money's gone, and so is your room. You don't have either. So don't make that mistake. It happens every year. And please, please make your reservations through the website. You'll get the room discounts, and you'll get a guaranteed room. There'll be one there for you. I've always done that, and I've always had a room. And that's what I've done again this year. Also, I received in the mail some of these cards that are free expo admission tickets. If you have not received these yet, you probably will very soon. They allow you not access to WEC, but instead access to the expo. The expo is free, and you can get it there. You can also register if you don't have one of these at the registration desk, and you can get in there for that. Believe that we have gotten all the questions, and we're just about out of time today. I did want to try to do one poll today. It's a poll I've done before, and I am going to pull it up.
While you're doing that, Bobby, I just one real quick interjection here. It's David DePriest.
Certainly.
Please send in your chapter updates, just a couple of quick bullet points, so that those of us who are presenting for our regions have some good information on what the great things that you guys are all doing, guys and gals are all doing out there. So please send us whatever information you can so that we can present that on the 16th.
Excellent point, David. And please get that information in. The regional vice presidents really need that data so that they can present no matter which region you're in, which leads me, David, into a great segue into this survey that's going on here. And I'd just like to know which region folks are in. It looks like Region 1 is not represented today, nor is Region 3, but Region 4 and 2 have very good representation. Region 1 does have representation. Every region does. That is good news. We've got quite a bit of representation across the board today. And it looks like we're Region 4 and Region 2, where our presenters are from, vice presidents, are actually the winners today in their area. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and show the results. If I can figure out how to do that. I may not have gotten that shown. I may have gone too quick on that. But Region 1 had 20%, Region 2 had 40%, Region 4 had 30%, and Region 5 had 10%. Our folks all the way across out on the West Coast. We're nearing the end of our time today. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for making time to join us. I would also like to encourage you as chapter officers to make sure that the information that AWE headquarters has on who are the chapter officers for your AWE chapter is accurate, up to date, and correct. We use that information to send out invites to these webinars, and we get quite a few bounce backs on incorrect information out there. So if you would, make it a priority to get the correct information in so that we can reach out to you and get your participation in this conference. Thank you again. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in October when we will be talking about, Carl Silas will talk about award submissions. Over into November, we'll be talking about support available from AEE headquarters and all of the various areas and all the types of questions they get from the field. Our 30 minutes is up. Thank you very much for your time and your efforts. Talk to you next month.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.